Oh no, you know what? It's automatic. There you go.
Sure. Sure. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. So even though I wasn't one, what I saw was that was what you did when you grew up. So after I got my first job at Pizza Hut and pretty much almost got fired for putting a few too many pepperonis on the pizza, I actually thought, wow, this is corporate America. Like this is terrible, right? So I thought I cannot live in corporate America. So I thought, well, one day I'm going to actually have a business too. I mean, if my folks can do it and my grandparents can do it, well, then why can't I? I mean, how hard could it be? Right. Well, that was really very naive on my part. But I started in college and it took me about 6 years before I made a penny because I had a lot of expensive lessons. And but then I finally got smarter. And eventually I got some large accounts for, I had a manufacturing company. I invented a product called the Capulet Protect Your Clothes. So it was this goofy sort of thing you put over your head and your ears and what have you. And stores provided it so that clients would protect their hair and their makeup, and the inventory would be protected because a lot of stores had expensive inventory. And if they got a snag, it was done. So, yeah, so I ended up with some large accounts and learned how to be an entrepreneur and expanded the line to 100 SKUs and ended up in being in multiple industries. So it was just step by step, and it really allowed me to take care of my family, raise my daughter, and so I eventually learned, and it was way harder than I imagined, but it was worth it because I had all the freedom I had. Time freedom was my most important value. That's what I valued more, was time freedom more than anything. So that gave me that. So in the meantime, once I started to make some money, then I started. I had studied. Well, what do you do when you make a little money? You know, for the future. And do you save? Do you invest? Do you buy insurance? So I studied it, and the more I learned, then I started to take baby steps at a young age, so that by the time I was 60 or 70 or 80, I'd be okay financially. I'd be situated, and I don't know why I knew that, but I do know my family did that. You know, they didn't tell me to do it, but that I watched them, and I learned that the sooner you start, whether you make mistakes or not, the mistakes really are minimized if you start sooner, and then you learn, and you have the advantage of time. So
Mhm.
I took advantage of time, and
Well,
that's
Meryl, I know you shared me. I know we were at the same mastermind in Austin, Texas, and I get a chance to hang out with you in your hotel room, and you shared me the story, and I was so, I mean, like, this is a story you need to share. You have to share us the very beginning when you were just sourcing your product. And can you tell us about that? Because, a lot of people need to hear the beginning story of yours before you come up with 100 SKUs in a manufacturing business and eventually get disrupted. Can you take us back in that beginning stage?
oh sure. Sure. So my mom is the one who gave me the idea for the first product,
Mhm.
and my accountant said it doesn't matter what product you start with, because when you're an entrepreneur, the first one is the test product. You're going to end up with a lot more as long as you keep on going and keep on learning. So I manufactured this mask, and it had fabric and it had lace, and I manufactured it in Los Angeles at first. What was so interesting is my uncle was in the swimwear industry. So he referred me to a buddy of his to help me with production. So I took the product there and he gave me a quote. And I found the fabric in town and I found the cutters. So I literally went in Los Angeles and went hunting for everything that I needed and asked people, what do I need? What do I need? Where do I get this? Where do I get that? So what was funny is this gentleman who worked for my uncle, who was a very successful manufacturing, completely screwed me on the pricing. Totally screwed me on the pricing. And I was just like, I couldn't believe it, right? You'd think that somebody was a vendor to a family member would have been nicer to you. But
Yeah.
that was one of my first lessons is, you know what? this is a cutthroat industry. And so that was one of my first lessons. And so that had me very quickly, find other people that could make it and get other quotes. And I learned what it means to source. And I learned about why it would have to be more expensive and how I could make it less expensive. And then I ended up getting Drapers and Damons as a client. So I was able to walk in there and say, listen, I've got an order for this many units. So what price you're going to give me? And there's 3 other people competing. So I had to learn how to leverage, even if it was fake out, I learned how to leverage the opportunity to compel people to work with me at a price that was fair. So I'm not sure which story I told you, but that was one of my big lessons. Was that the one I told you?
Yes, that's the story. And I have to say, Sarah Blakely did that too, uh, with Spanx when, she got her first few items at Nordstrom. She ended up buying it to show that someone else, wanting it, right?
Wow.
It's like any other things, everything. I mean, you have to do what it takes,
You got
right?
to do what you got to do, right? Right.
Yeah. So Dan, oh, he's not muted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing, Maryl. So I'm curious then, and I have a question for you later because literally 30 minutes before this, somebody asked me a question and I'm like, I have to ask Maryl. But what got you from entrepreneurship more into studying finance?
Once I had more money to work with and I started to understand the value of time, and I started to understand asset classes, and I started to understand that as an entrepreneur, I might not get wealthy out of being an entrepreneur, but I could generate wealth by leveraging that money and putting it to work for me passively while I work to build more capital. So once I understood that the entrepreneurship might give you a buyout, but it might not. So what's the plan B? If your business gives you a decent living and it gives you the quality of life you want, but it doesn't give you an abundance, how can you use time to generate abundance? So it was me understanding the value of time and me understanding asset classes and how to put the various asset classes to work aside from my business. I mean, there's so many ways that we can leverage alternative opportunities separate from our business that we just don't even, we're not present to. But I was curious because I had seen people that had generated wealth. I'm like, how did you do it? How did you do it? How did you do it? And people would say, well, I bought a house and I sold it and I made more money. A house. Ooh. Well, I bought, insurance and I was able to leverage my insurance and borrow against it to buy a new building. Oh, insurance. So I just started to ask people, how did you make money?
And yeah, I think Maryl, another thing about her is she actually produced, what is his name? Long Beach, the rapper. We just talked about it, 4th of July.
Oh, was that Snoop? Was it Snoop? No,
Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg? Yes, concert. Yes.
Yes, that's right.
And you said it was 2016? You said 2016, I don't remember.
Yeah, that's right.
2016, yeah. So
yeah, so a friend of mine
dabbled different,
dabbled.
Yes, different businesses, and some of them land, some of it so how are you as an investor be okay? Sometimes, investment doesn't work out. How you do that emotionally and where you are right now, how you handle that? Because a lot of people can handle when they lose money. They go crazy, right? But as we all know, even as big as family office and VCs, out of 10 investment, maybe 2 of them will land. So how do you handle that emotions?
Well, I had a professor I wanted to go to USC to go to their entrepreneurial program, but my mom was not having that. So she had me go to Claremont McKenna College, where we had a liberal arts degree. So I got a degree in economics. What I wanted to be was an entrepreneur. But a very smart professor who was entrepreneurial, he was my main professor. He said, never invest more than you can afford to lose, and never let anybody have control over assets that can tank your business. So when he told me that became part of my investment strategy. Like if I would try something and I know it was risky, what percentage of money was I willing to play? I called it my cowboy investment. So I literally would put money to the side, and I call them my cowboy investments, where I would take more risks and go into areas that maybe I didn't know, and maybe I would make stupid choices. But so much of my investments were smart choices that I was willing to give myself the learning curve money, where I could invest in some high flyers. And you know what? Of 10 high flyers, 2 worked and made me millions, and the other 8 didn't. And it took 25 years. So the way that I got my head around it is I realized every entrepreneur has to make the best decision they can with the information they have. Every entrepreneur has the opportunity to get a great team around them that can advise them. And at the end of the day, when they go for it, it may or may not work, no matter how good their advice team is. And so I just accepted that that's part of the game, kind of like a chess game, so you play chess, you move a piece, and guess what? Some of those pieces, they're going to come off because the other person's going to play better than you. Ultimately, it's how do you win the queen? And so every gig I invest, it's like, what's the queen? I would define it. What does it mean to get the queen? And how do I get to the queen? And if I could win half the time, or 30% of the time, or 60% of the time, then I turned it in. I gamified it for myself.
I love it. And I think that's a lot of, the young investors are doing it wrong at this point. We're putting all their money to crypto, which is scary when you have a bear market like this. And then what are you going to do? Right?
Well, here's the thing, and I've been studying, as you know, I've been studying cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, digital assets, blockchain. I've been studying it quite a bit, including the metaverse. And when you buy crypto, you're speculating. Now, if you were an early speculator, you freaking scored. But if you're a newer speculator, you have to be more intelligent on how you actually move into it. And so I'm really looking at, well, how can we safely invest at this point? How can we be an investor instead of a speculator? And so as a trustee and someone who loves finance, I'm really studying how can I turn myself into an investor, and more of an investor and less of a speculator.
Yeah, I love that. And oh, by the way, I will have Maryl on 28th for the Web3 LA. So if you want to learn more nuggets from her, she's done it for a very long time, handled a lot of investment successfully. She's the right advisor that you can ask questions. I'm very excited, and with another VC. So Dan, do you have any question for Maryl?
Yeah. So Maryl, and this question came up earlier, and I love this, by the way, and I love your honesty, and that I think sometimes people sell a dream, and then like entrepreneurship is amazing, it's perfect, it's for everybody, and we all know it's a mental grind, and it's definitely not for everyone to handle. So my question, though, separately, you're talking about crypto and metaverse and Web3. If somebody is like yourself and they're more in the investment space or traditional banking space, how do they get in, or what do you think would be a good way for them to enter this? As I know the industries are starting to slowly pick up, but they're still very far from it. 'Cause I got this question earlier today, is if somebody's more traditional, how do they enter the space? And I thought, who better to get the advice than was from you?
Well, thank you. Well, it's interesting because the market has gone, because the market is so, so bearish. Listen, all the markets are in a bear mode right now, right? So it doesn't really matter. But there are funds that have diversified investment, like any kind of, fund. So there are some funds on Wall Street that you can invest in. It is, in terms, if you are risk averse, then right now is not the time necessarily, but I am studying securitized tokens. And securitized tokens could be an interesting way to invest, where they actually have compliance issues that they must follow. And they, there are guidelines like that they comply with respect to what the SEC requires if you're going to launch an opportunity. So there are some of those opportunities that are coming up. There's also they call them quant funds. And so there are quant funds you can invest in. And quant funds basically make money off of differences in currency prices. So let's just take Bitcoin. Bitcoin, because there's a lot of decentralized pricing at the moment, Bitcoin could cost, let's say $18,000 in Iran and $22,000 in New York. So the quant trading actually finds these differences, and then every day they make a trade. So quant trading is an interesting approach, but you need to find people that are really good at it, and they've got the good machinery, and you got to look at the track record. So it's treacherous at the moment to figure that out, but the funds are an avenue to look at.
Love it, love it. Dan?
Amazing. Yeah, I've seen some software recently that uses AI to help you track what's going on in terms of what people are purchasing and selling. I thought that was quite interesting to give you like a pulse of the market from, thousands of different perspectives, I guess.
Yeah, they use the quant funds use AI. They do. And I mean, basically they'll set you up where it's like an 80-20 split. So let's just say you have a quant fund and you have organized the algorithms. You're a you're a technologist, you're a wizard, and you take a percentage for managing things, and then you take your split, and every month there's a 80-20 split or what have you. So I know several people that are doing that. Whether it's profitable or not, I haven't done it. I looked into it, but I didn't jump in because I didn't see a contract that I liked.
So
what do you look for? Yeah, I'm curious. What do you look for a contract? What is it that you don't like that you didn't pull the trigger?
It was too complicated, and there were too many people taking a piece of this and a piece of that. I didn't, and the person that was running it, it wasn't their contract. They were letting somebody else do the contract. So he was doing the work, but he was not working with the attorney to have the contract communicate what agreement he was willing to make. Someone else was creating the agreement that he was making with his investors, yet I would be investing with him. I didn't like that.
Dan?
Wow. Where do you see the future of investing in the sense of as an investor in companies? So where do you see the future of that happening with it's so global now. I mean, I'm just blown away by I'll listen to, multiple people talking about their company and each one has a different accent. I've never seen personally so many people from all around the world coming together, which I'm sure creates a lot of complexities in terms of spanning many different countries and different regions around the world and laws and restrictions. Where do you see as an investor, though, the future from an investor's perspective? What's it going to be like in a few years to invest? Is it easier? Is it more challenging? Do you think software will enable it to be even better, more connections? What are your thoughts there?
I think it's a little of all of it, right? I think if you're 50 or older, it's going to be harder for you to adapt to maybe new systems or new opportunities. So, I mean, I'll just take, entertain gaming, right? Gaming represents more dollar exchange and more value as an asset class than entertainment, than movies. But how many of us can invest in gaming companies, right? So, but there's an opportunity that's growing, and as the metaverse grows, so will gaming. But people that are 50 and over, they're going to want more of the tried and true investment, opportunities. So right now it's tough to say because with inflation, we don't really know how long inflation is going to inflate. Right. We've really had the luxury of stability and low inflation, low interest rates for so many years, longer than normal. So now we've got this chaos happening and things are realigning. So I literally have conversations every day with an expert in different asset classes about that. Like, listen, with inflation being unpredictable, and with interest rates rising, and with savings accounts still being so low, and with bond rates being so low, what is the safe investment right now other than doing nothing and then, losing the value of your money because of inflation, which if you have a lot of it, that's not a big deal. But if you don't have a lot.
I think we lost her. Did you unplug your phone? There you go. Well, we're fixing that. If you have any questions, just type in.
That's not me. I don't know
Oh,
what
there
that
you go.
is.
Oh, there you go. It's working now. Go ahead. Yeah, you know what? We're talking about, Dan, that's like such a great question. But I think with blockchain, where everything is transparent, can you guys hear me?
Oh, wait, hang on. Can you hear that noise?
No, we're still live.
Yes, yeah, I hear static. Hang on a second. Okay, can you hear me
Oh,
now?
there you go.
It was actually Clubhouse.
I can't hear it.
I ended it because it was Clubhouse
Can you
was
hear me?
making the noise.
Oh, yeah. Why don't we just do it here?
Oh no,
That was strange.
What happened?
sorry, I had it.
Did you end the room?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I ended it. It was so loud. It was like it was
Okay,
coming.
No,
It
I
was something wrong with the
couldn't
phone.
hear anything. Was that me? Or I don't know. But we're still here. We're still live. Meryl, we're good.
We're still live. You end the broadcast here or keep going?
No, just keep going.
I'm so sorry. I think there's someone on my roof. You're in the show. Everyone in the show. Let me see.
There's someone in your roof?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yes.
Oh, turn the volume of the computer. There you go. Can you hear from the computer?
I can hear you from the computer. Yes.
Okay, there we go. We're back.
I'm so sorry about that. There's somebody walking on my roof. I'm sorry. Where were we?
We're experiencing it live. And I was talking about such a great question for Dan about investment and all of that. Is it scary? Because there's so many, it's becoming so open and global, which is wonderful, which I love that comment, Dan. But I think with blockchain technology, when everything is efficient and transparent, then it's probably going to be easier to do it all together. So I'm very excited for that moment where everything is recorded and it's transparent. There you go.
No, thank you, Kate.
So sorry.
I am wondering though too if, I mean, do you see Maryl from what it seems like from a venture capitalist or VC? When you hear in the news and the medias, they kind of go with what's popular. So like last year, NFTs were popular, so everyone was investing in that. Now this year, it's metaverse is popular, so everyone's investing in it. It seems like they're flowing where you're seeing like the most attention going. But I'm curious if that is a lot of institutional investors. Is that how they look, or is that just a few doing that, and maybe the bigger ones just make more noise? I always wanted to know like the mindset of. Then you have some people talk about, they want to buy more, farmland, which is like totally opposite of, virtual real estate. So what are your thoughts here in terms of more institutional investors? How do they, where do they sway their attention?
So institutions are, and I'm so forgive me for the interruption. There's someone walking on my roof. I have no idea who, and I think that they disconnected my something or other on the roof. But anyway, so institutions are definitely investing. They're bullish on Bitcoin over time. They're just buying a lot of Bitcoin, and the lower it goes, in fact, a lot of them are causing it to be lower. The more they're buying. So they're positioning themselves to be, to own Ethereum and to own Bitcoin. That's for sure. And sorry, what was the second part of the question? Forgive me for looking away. I'm looking to see who's on my roof.
No, do you want to just end it? Do you want to keep going?
No, we can keep going.